G'day everyone, welcome again to the chat. As you know, I love everything about the wider racing and breeding industry, and you can see on my cap we've got the Magic Millions coming up, and a big supporter of the Magic Millions is Tab and Sky. And joining me today from Tab and Sky is one Marc Ohlmus. G'day Mark, how are you, mate?
G'day Ben, thanks for having me on, mate. Thank you for taking the time out in your very busy schedule to have me on, mate. It's a real pleasure.
No worries at all. First of all, are you going to be getting up to Magic Millions in January next year?
I won't be. We'll be covering it all on Sky One, though, especially the morning and the lead-up sort of sessions. We'll be, do it. We've planned on the morning line, which is Sky One mornings now during the week. We're going to have a lot of back and forth between Richard Haynes, who'll be our man on the ground. So it's always exciting sales season, Benny, as you well and truly know. There's just so much colour and vibrancy to it, especially up at the Gold Coast. So it'll be wonderful to have everybody at the Gold Coast after a couple of difficult years. But likes of Asia, all countries, all racing countries from around the world are going to be represented there. So some terrific horse flesh, and going through all 1,273 lots is going to be fun.
Absolutely. And tell me, how do you prepare for hosting the morning one on Sky Racing each weekday morning from 8 a.m?
Mate, it's one of those. I love my job, but it's one of those tasks where you're better off trying to keep up to date with it as it happens. So I'll try and watch whatever important races I need to be in the loop. But say for a weekend, because there's so much to keep track of. What I'll do usually on a Monday morning, well, we go on air at about 8, so I'll always try to get in at about 6:30 and just get myself settled. But on a Monday, I'll come in a little bit earlier than that and just go through the rundown and just try to get a grasp of everything that's happened. So of the major events that have happened, you can get some sort of context. But my main preparation, mate, throughout the week, each and every day, is to read ANZ Bloodstock, terrific publication, and TDN AUNZ. I'll try to read as much of both of them as I can, and usually I read all of them. Maybe the weekends I'll have a little skim through on a Saturday morning. But the Sunday morning and the Monday morning editions are the most important for my preparation. But that's the bulk of my preparation, mate. And always with doing the morning line and anything that we do in media, in particular racing media, my objective is to tell the audience something that they don't know or they might not know. And that's where keeping up to date and keeping track of everything that's going on is really important. So it's no easy task, and quite often when you're not at work, you are still working. So, mate, we love our jobs, though. That's why you and I both love racing. We're always at the race.
Absolutely. Tell me, you also spent a significant period covering greyhound racing. How did you get into that? And I know how much you love the greyhounds too.
Love it now. I've always had an interest in greyhound racing, Benny. Yep. As a punter, I think you're a punter and you get into racing through punting, you would have punted on the greyhounds, right? So that's how I got into racing, and an opportunity came up with Sky to host a catching pen, going back a few years now, I think 2019 anyway, and that was a terrific opportunity which I took. And also the people that you meet through the greyhound racing industry, it's really important for our jobs, the relationships that you build, and you get to appreciate the sport, appreciate the canine athlete as well, but most importantly for what we do, having a good grasp of all three codes is really important, because it's all interconnected. So the more you know about harness racing, the more you can actually apply the principles of whether it's jargon or whether it's how they race to other codes. You can do the same with greyhounds to gallops or vice versa. It's really important, and that's what being in the greyhound scene taught me. It gave me principles to be able to apply to other codes. But again, you just come across some of the greatest people and some of the greatest stories, Ben. That's why I love what I do. We get to tell the wonderful stories of our industry, and tell you what, in greyhound racing, there are plenty of them.
Tell me, you say you meet some good people, but they've been on Sky as well doing the greyhounds. Tell me a bit about Jason Lincoln and one Disco Dave Carlson.
Yeah, Dave Carlson's a great man, and obviously he was hosting the catching pen for a long time. He left for a bit, and now he's back. He still works at French's Forest doing odd bits and pieces like Tab Audio. You'll hear him in the pubs and the clubs and in the agencies. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's just a character. And I think that comes through the television sets, which is what I think Dave is so widely loved. Jason Lincoln is, I'd have to say probably the most knowledgeable. Not like it's a funny one, Benny, because when you talk to people in racing, they've seen a lot and they remember a lot. They're very knowledgeable about the sport. And it's usually that, or the other side of it, they're form nerds. Jason's both of them, right? So any bit of form, the nuts and the bolts, the times, the margins, the form lines, that all has great context with his knowledge, which is so, so deep. And any three of the codes, Wiz was a steward over in WA for the trots. But, at once upon a time, he was a very, very avid follower of Hong Kong racing. And now he's, he just finds winners where people can't find winners at the greyhounds. It's a very closed off sort of market where there isn't too much edge. But Jason Lincoln, I don't know how he does it, but I remember this time last year in a heat of the Melbourne Cup, he found an $81 winner at the Dogs, and that's just again, that's so much knowledge backed. So he's seen trends like this happen before, and certain dogs or horses that just profile right. And there's this one dog, Tiberia Bale, which he found. And finding an $81 shot in the Dogs, Ben, he's like finding a 300 to 1 shot in the Gallop. It's not easy to do.
No.
Easy to do. And he's just an unbelievable judge, but just a wealth of knowledge. So, and anything you want to talk to him about, it's just fun because you learn so much, and you just always have a laugh in between. Like, I love talking to Wiz, even about things like old race callers or old race calls. We have a lot of fun with one. A race caller actually just passed recently, Stewie Shenton. In the nicest possible way. We just love to talk about the calls of Stewie Shenton and the character that he was. And there's this recording that's done the rounds of Stewie Shenton while he's off air, and it's just hilarious. And we just love talking about that stuff. We're just kind of racing nerds. He's a great man, Wiz.
Away from your media work, what do you like to do in your spare time, Mark?
No spare time in racing, as you know, Ben. But at the moment, my partner, who is she's currently carrying, and we're expecting, which is very exciting. So that's going to be taking up a lot of our time. Otherwise, mate, I really like to relax. I'm quite a homebody, so I like to be at home and try to switch off from the races, which can be really hard because it's 24/7. But otherwise, mate, after work, like today, you might notice I'm in my gym kit. I'll try and go to have a sweat, and that's my place to kind of release and get the headphones in and just try to burn off the weekend's takeaway or drink or whatever it is. Enjoy that. I also like to read. I'm currently reading Shoe Dog at the moment, which is Phil Knight's memoirs, the man who started Nike, and that's terrific. I also love to go through these catalogues. The Magic Millions book has just only released, what was it, been a couple of weeks ago now. So go through that. That's some nice light reading. I'm on a plane to Perth tomorrow, so we'll get through a bit of that. Otherwise, mate, just spend time with family and friends. I think when you're in your 20s, long answer, Benny, when you're in your 20s, you're trying to kind of quote unquote make it, get your career up and running, and everything goes into that. A lot of energy goes into that. But when you hit your 30s, you kind of realize that family, friends aren't going to be around forever. So you try to spend as much time with them.
Well, I'm mid-30s, mate, and I'm still going like I'm 21.
I don't know how you do it, mate.
You mentioned Perth. Tell me about your connection to Perth. And I believe you worked for Perth Racing for a while over there, or were you with Racing and Wagering WA?
No, it was Perth Racing. Yeah, it was the race club. It was the WATC, the turf club, which is I think a lot of people know that I love Perth. I've just got this really strong bond and connection to not only the people of Perth, but the city of Perth. Just loved it there. It's where I got my start in racing media and, parts of racing admin. And I was really scared going over there, Benny. I'd never lived out of home, and I was worried about how the people were going to receive me. And they received me with so much love, which is why I loved the place and loved the job. It was really hard to leave, but I was lucky enough to do lots of different tasks. Like I said, racing admin, a little bit of that with the Masters, as it was known then. We put together the first running of the Masters. My boss, Marc Ohlmus, at the time, who's now in Hong Kong. Julian Sullivan was our big boss who got me over there. He said, you should apply for this job because you should see where it's going to take you. And I owe Julian everything, JKS, the great man. But it was just a wonderful 18 months, mate. It's second home to me. And whenever I'm there, I always feel at ease because it's such a laid back place, especially in the racing sense, mate. It's very different to anywhere else in the country. So to anybody that hasn't been over there for a railway or a Perth Cup or even a Melbourne Cup day, the sensational days out of that, Scott.
Yeah. Tell me then about working with Brittany Taylor. I mean, she's practically almost, you could say, the voice of WA racing. Anytime there's anything WA on the TV, she's hosting it.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't go that far. I still think Darren McCauley is the voice of WA racing, but yeah, I know what you're saying, Benny. Britt's a star, and whenever we see Britt, we think of WA racing. Yeah. I didn't get really to work with her, but she was always there. Like, me and myself and Britt are very good mates, and Lockie. I used to, whenever I'm in WA, I try to get over to their Ballsbrook property where the boss, Lois, her grandmother, the matriarch of the Taylor family is, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful lady. She is an unbelievable horsewoman too. But working with Britt, she's a star. Like, I don't need to tell you guys that. She's a star, and she was always going to get to where she is now. And I have a feeling that the journey's not over yet for Britt. It's only just starting. Her work with Channel 10 is just sensational. Yeah. The thing I love about Britt is when there's a moment, she gets right in that moment and brings it out of its shell, whether it's on horseback or whether it's post-race. As we're recording, Benny, we had the railway, and Mr. Webster, Colin Webster, has trained the winner of the railway stakes, and she just captured that moment so beautifully, Ben. People don't need me to tell them that Brittany Taylor's a star.
And I think also what makes her rounded with what she does with her presenting is the fact that she still rides track work of a morning as well. It gives her an idea of what other things too. Yeah,
for sure. She's very hands-on, and in the future, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a trainer's license taken out with B. Taylor on the card, mate. She's just so she's grown up around horses, obviously, but she's just got that touch. And with the Taylor name as a surname, she'll have no issues in growing that and becoming very successful if that is eventually what she does decide to do. But I have a feeling we might see maybe I don't know which way it would go, whether it would be Brittany and Lockie or Lockie and Brittany, but I think one day that they will be training horses.
Do you currently have any shares in horses yourself, Mark?
I do. Majority of my horses are over in Western Australia with Michael and Chris Gangemi. They like a certain breed of horse that I really like, and that's the Perencantos. So at the moment, we've got a horse called Thomas Magnum, who is very talented. He's won a couple of races, raced in stakes class. Still does a lot wrong, but he's very exciting, and he'll be back in work soon. Got another one with them. The Gangemi model was to buy tried horses, and one of them that they bought was a horse named Tadwea. You viewers and listeners might remember him from being with Team Hayes. He was a Shadwell horse that that Sheikh Hamdan, or late Sheikh Hamdan, and his team sold, and picked him up and got a little share in him. And he's got really nice form. He's returning to the races this coming weekend on Winterbottom Day, and he'll be a bet if he draws well. He's extremely talented, and the horse he ran second to, Snipperucci, has since come out and won a stakes race. So we're hoping with him that he goes well. We've got another one called, he doesn't have a name yet, actually. He's a 2-year-old. He's just made his way over to Perth, but again, he's by Perencanto, and he's about 80,000 at the sales. But the reason why I like the breed is because they're tough. They try, and they were relatively inexpensive. Perencanto is now 55,000 a serve, thanks to the likes of Rockin' Horse, who has won a Newmarket, and what they call it now, Benny, a Champions Sprint. So those are the ones of mine at the moment. There's a horse that we have called Shackleton, which we lease out in WA. Darren Payton, who's done a sensational job with him on the dirt. He was a $1.35 million yearling, and he's found his way racing in Roebourne and Broome and places like that. But he's a whole other story. That's about it, mate, at the moment. That's it. But enjoy my journey in horse ownership, mate. It's great fun, especially when you get your hands onto a good one.
And you mentioned the Gangemis. Their star that a lot of people here in Melbourne would know about would be Rock Magic. It came over here and raced at the Valley several times. Yeah,
and it was another one of those horses. It was Borrow's choice, and I don't think he was too well fancied in the east. And then he goes over west change of environment and dry tracks can really help these horses, and in gelding operation, a bit like Shackleton as well. But he raced until he was 12, mate, and that just goes to show. Well, like Michael as well, but Chris, the amount of time and love that he put into that horse, and even that, mate. Like, the reason I love racing stories like Rock Magic, because not only the horse, where he's come from and what he managed to achieve. He won Roma Cups and other stakes races for the Ganjimis, which are very special. But the guys that are attached to him along the way, he's now a foreman of Leon and Troy Corstons named Nisham Clegg, and he's a big part of that horse's story, as is Jared Noski, the rider, and the owners who had such a thrill with that horse. Yeah, and you know what, Benny? Like, I can't remember what race it was at the Valley, but there was one of them where he was trapped 3-4 deep throughout, and he kept fighting on for fourth. Like, you could argue that he maybe should have gone closer to winning in Group 1. He was such an unbelievable horse, and one of those horses that will forever remain in folklore of WA race.
What was your highlight across the Spring Carnival in the Cox Plate, Caulfield Cup and Melbourne Cup carnivals? Like, which one?
Ooh, in terms of a performance, there's no interest like self-interest. So I'm going to say Larkspur Run and Ice Bar. They were both great performances, and I was so thrilled. Actually, I thought Ice Bath was one of the stories of the carnival, picking up a first Group 1. Just lucky enough to have something on, but that was terrific. Of the stories, I think it has to be. Look, it's not Melbourne. It's not one of the Victorian carnivals, but I thought Giga Kick's performance in the Everest. I was actually at Caulfield Cup Day, watching it, and it was unbelievable, mate. Like, Clayton Douglas, young 27-year-old trainer with a modestly bred horse owned by a giant of breeding, racing and owning, Jonathan Munns. Unbelievable story. The other one I'll probably say was Mark Zahra, for him to pick himself up from just getting beaten in a Caulfield Cup to then going top weight in a Melbourne Cup and getting the right spot on was just a sensational performance on Gold Trip. But, mate, there were many of them, and that's why we're so lucky with racing. I always say, whenever there's a Melbourne Cup, there might be 24 runners, but there are 24 streams of stories that we can pick out and we can sell the sport with, and that's why I love racing.
When and where did you catch the racing bug, Mark?
It was on the punt for me, Ben. So it was funny. I grew up not hating racing, but I didn't like racing because my dad was a punter. And after school, or even on Saturday, on the Saturdays, I can remember growing up, Dad used to drop myself, Mum, sister off at Caulfield Plaza there at the Coles. We'd do the shopping, and Dad would be over at Zagami's having a bet. And quite often we'd have to be waiting for him to, the last leg of the quaddie or whatever it was, so we could go home. And the same thing on occasion after school. Dad used to go and check into the tab for 5-10 minutes to collect his winnings or whatever, and he'd promise us with Maccas, and my sister used to look at each other going, this is stupid, what's this racing thing? And it was funny. I went to a Melbourne Cup in 2006, Delta Blues Pop Rock. Still had no interest in racing, Ben. And then I turned 18 and I could have a bet, and backing a horse called Purple Moon each way and collecting off that in the 2007 Melbourne Cup was part of it. Then I went to schoolies, and then I just did what Dad would do in the morning, get the paper. And I was a bit early to schoolies ahead of some of my mates. And I remember getting the paper, sitting by the pool and doing what Dad did, and that was read the form. I think that was racing at Taree or Port Macquarie, and I had a bet on every race that day, and I was just watching them in the pub at the Great Northern up at Byron Bay. Ended up cleaning up, and then I just continued to punt that week, and I ended up making a lot of money paying for schoolies trip and everything, and all the boys were at the beach. I was at the pub having beers and bets, and that's where I caught the bug for sure. And then I got right into it to try to find out what all of this was about. So that's where I got the racing bug for sure. Schoolies, funnily enough, 2007.
What a weird place to get the racing bug, though, at schoolies. Doesn't make sense.
Yep. No. Mate, they're all looking at girls on the beach, and I was in the pub tab having a few schooners with the locals and betting on Traralgon dogs.
And just one last one, Mark. Which of your fellow Sky/Tab presenters are the most fun or entertaining to work with? Wiz is always good fun, and Jason Adams. We all have
connection through grain racing, through She's a Pearl in particular, who's just taken us on one of the most unbelievable rides. So whenever we get together, it's good fun. But mate, every one of my colleagues that you spend time with, you'll pick something up of. I've loved spending time with Richard Haynes. I've been lucky enough to spend some time with Hainesy off the track and away from work, and he's just a wealth of knowledge, but he's just such a beautiful man, Hainesy. Glenn Munsey, wealth of knowledge I've learned so much off of, and he's always so helpful without me having to ask, mate, are you right? Do you need anything? Greg Radley, unbelievable. Duff, always up for a chat. In terms of, like having the most fun with, though, I'd probably say Wiz and Patch, because I see him the most down in Melbourne. But don't get me wrong, mate, we all have a lot of fun and we all just love racing. I guess that's the common bond. I'll go Wiz, though. I'll go Wiz and Patch.
Marc Ohlmus, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure, mate, and thank you for having me on the chat.